Do you remember stepping into a supermarket in the 1990s? You'd be greeted with snacks that felt like old friends lined up on the shelves. Bright wrappers, playful mascots, and flavors that seemed like pure magic to a child's eyes. One of these was so dearly loved that people are still signing petitions for its return. Keep watching to find out which one. Few treats stirred as much devotion as the Galaxy Truffle. Grandparents will tell you it was always the first to vanish from a box of celebrations at Christmas. Smooth, silky, and indulgent, it was the one sweet everyone reached for before the wrappers even hit the floor. Families would laugh and trade the lesser chocolates while saving the truffles like gold. At gatherings, the first question when a celebrations tub was opened was always, "Are there any truffles left?" And if there were, it felt like winning a prize. But in 2011, Mars quietly removed it, sparking uproar. Forums lit up, petitions were launched, and to this day, people still argue about which sweet should have gone instead. Grandparents often shake their heads and say it ruined the balance of the box, because Christmas traditions aren't the same without them. Losing it left a hole that no other truffle has filled. Still, no sweet captured rainy afternoons like Nestle Toffo. Each roll of chewy toffee pieces felt endless, handed over across sweet shop counters with a smile. They were soft, sticky, and comforting. The kind of sweet that glued itself to your teeth but never wore out its welcome. Every family seemed to have a memory of passing the roll around, each person sneaking one more piece until it was gone. When they disappeared in 2008, it felt like a little piece of childhood was gone forever. By 2014, when one forgotten packet turned up in Dundee, collectors scrambled for it like treasure. Imagine a roll of toffees causing headlines. That's how much it mattered. Grandparents still laugh about how quickly toffos disappeared from their pockets, but they'll tell you it was always worth it. But no loss hit quite like Rowntree's secret chocolate bar. It looked like nothing else on the shelf. A delicate tangle of milk chocolate wrapped around a soft, marshmallowy center. The trouble was, it was so fragile you were lucky if it survived the walk home in one piece. Still, that was part of the charm, wasn't it? The crumbled bits at the bottom of the wrapper were just as delicious as the first bite. And somehow that made it feel special. Grandparents remembered it as a treat too pretty to last, something you'd savor slowly before it disappeared in 2003. Ever since, online petitions have been begging for its return. Even worse was losing white chocolate Maltesers. For a brief time, these little pearls of crisp malt were wrapped in creamy white chocolate instead of the usual milk, and it felt like a secret luxury hidden in sweet shop bags. Kids adored them, adults stashed them away, and they were the kind of treat you didn't want to share. But in 2014, Mars announced with regret that they'd be discontinued, blaming sales and shelf space. Fans never believed that excuse. After all, they had become favorites at Christmas parties and movie nights. Even today, comments flood the old Maltesers page begging for their return. Grandparents recall how quickly the bags vanished, often saying they felt more special because they were rare. Yet, Cadbury's old cream egg recipe cut the sharpest. There was a time when a Cadbury's cream egg meant thick, rich milk chocolate cracking open to reveal that sticky, fondant center. Your grandparents will tell you nothing tasted like it. It was messy, indulgent, and a treat that only Easter could bring. But in 2015, Cadbury quietly swapped the shell from dairy milk chocolate to a cheaper mix, and people noticed straight away. Sales fell by millions, petitions raged online, and headlines covered the fury. Families complained the eggs no longer tasted the same, and grandparents especially shook their heads at how tradition had been broken. A cream egg wasn't just a sweet, it was the centerpiece of Easter baskets. Changing it felt like losing a piece of British culture. Even years later, people still talk about the old recipe as if it were a lost treasure, but losing Cartoonies biscuits hurt even more. Open a lunchbox in the 1990s or early 2000s, and your grandparents might remind you of Cartoonies staring back. These chocolate-filled biscuits came stamped with little cartoon animals, turning snack time into a playful moment before the first bite. The outside was crisp, the inside molten, and the packets were just the right size for small hands at school break. They were cheeky, fun, and always in demand. But when Burton's Biscuits was bought out in 2013, Cartoonies slowly faded away, slipping quietly off the shelves. Families noticed, children mourned, and grandparents sighed that another piece of simple joy had vanished. They weren't just biscuits, they were companions in lunchboxes. Even now, nostalgia pages online are full of people longing for just one more packet. Even Kit Kat senses couldn't escape loss. If your grandparents remember the TV adverts, they'll smile at the memory of Kit Kat senses. Introduced with a flashy Girls Aloud campaign, this praline-filled version of the classic bar was all about indulgence. It came in neat little chunks, perfect for sharing, though few people ever did. The flavour was smooth, nutty, and richer than a normal Kit Kat, giving families a sense that it was a grown-up version of a childhood favourite. For a while, it felt like Kit Kat had cracked the secret to competing with luxury praline bars, but just as quickly as it arrived, it was gone. By 2010, it had vanished from shelves, leaving fans confused and disappointed. Still, nothing tasted more British than Twiglets. Your grandparents may still chuckle at the memory of these tangy little Twiglets that carried a Worcestershire sauce punch. First appearing in the early 1990s, they gave the familiar crunchy stick a bold new kick that was perfect for Christmas parties and pub snacks. Limited edition bags would show up around the holidays, and families would grab them fast, knowing they'd vanish again by January. The flavour was sharp, savoury, and strangely addictive, the kind of taste you either loved or wrinkled your nose at, but fans adored them, and many begged to make them a permanent flavour. Still, they never stuck. Even today, the mention of Worcestershire Twiglets makes people nostalgic for nights by the fire, with relatives, hands reaching into a shared bowl. But another loss we're still recovering from is Bernard Matthews' Turkey Twizzlers. Few school dinners are remembered as vividly as Bernard Matthews' Turkey Twizzlers. Spiral-shaped, processed and cooked until they curled on the tray, they were the guilty pleasure of the 1990s and early 2000s. Children cheered when they appeared on plates, and grandparents still smile remembering how kids begged for them at home. But in 2005, Jamie Oliver's school dinner campaign revealed just how unhealthy they were, sparking outrage among parents. Almost overnight, Twizzlers became a symbol of junk food, and Bernard Matthews pulled them from shelves. Love them or hate them, they're now cemented in memory as one of Britain's most infamous snacks. Yet, losing Cadbury's Flake Snow just felt confusing. At the turn of the millennium, Cadbury gave the world a frosty twist on their classic flake. The Flake Snow. Imagine the crumbly texture of a flake, but coated in white chocolate instead of milk, giving it a creamy, snowy look. When it first hit shelves in 2000, grandparents delighted in slipping them into stockings or bringing them home as a winter treat. Kids loved the novelty, and the bars quickly became a favourite. But by 2008, they were gone, leaving confusion and disappointment behind. Some fans still argue that the name change in 2003 from Snowflake to Flake Snow cursed the product. Others say Cadbury just didn't know how to market it. Next up, losing Vanilla Ice Cream Monster Munch was just bizarre. Monster Munch was always about bold, salty flavours like pickled onion, roast beef, and flaming hot. But in 2002, something unexpected hit the shelves. Vanilla Ice Cream Monster Munch. It sounded more like a prank than a snack. Your grandparents might laugh, remembering the puzzled looks when kids opened a bag expecting crisps and instead found something sweet and creamy. Some loved the novelty. Others thought it was simply too strange. It didn't last long. By the mid-2000s, it had vanished quietly, leaving behind only curious memories. Even worse was watching Campino strawberry and cream sweets vanish. For over 40 years, Campino strawberry and cream sweets were a fixture in British homes. Those swirled red and white boiled candies had a creamy yogurt taste balanced with strawberry, and grandparents loved to keep a packet handy in their purses or cars. They were smooth, comforting, and perfect for a long journey or a quiet moment with a cup of tea. Children would beg for one during shopping trips, their eyes lighting up when the familiar striped sweet appeared from a pocket. Then, in the mid-2000s, they quietly disappeared, leaving families wondering why. They weren't flashy or strange, just dependable like many things from their era, and perhaps that's why their loss feels so sharp. The real ache came with Cadbury's Marble Ask Your Grandparents about chocolate that felt truly special, and they might mention Cadbury's Marble. This bar blended milk and white chocolate into a marbled shell with a praline center, making every bite rich and unique. It wasn't just a sweet, it was elegance wrapped in purple foil. Introduced in the late 90s, it quickly became a family favorite, the kind of bar grandparents bought for a weekend treat. Its popularity was so strong that Cadbury even used it to sponsor Coronation Street in 1998. But by the early 2000s, Marble vanished, leaving fans stunned. Even now, nostalgia groups push for its return, remembering the creamy swirls that made it different from any other bar. Another British classic we all miss is Mingles. In 2002, British sweet shops introduced a new minty selection box called Mingles. Wrapped in shiny green packaging, they offered a mix of chocolates with mint centers, some smooth, some crunchy, some layered. Families loved them during the holidays, passing them around after dinner, with grandparents often making sure everyone got their favorite type. They were like a modern twist on After Eights, playful and varied. But by 2011, the brand was downsized, production moved abroad, and Mingles were discontinued altogether. Fans were left disappointed, with many saying they had become a Christmas tradition far too quickly to disappear. Grandparents especially missed them because they were one of the few sweets everyone in the family enjoyed, no matter the age. Today, people still share old wrappers, reminiscing about which flavor they fought over first. Mingles showed how something simple could bring families together. Now, Cadbury's Spira was another classic we lost too soon. Your grandparents may remember the odd-looking Cadbury Spira, two hollow, twisted chocolate fingers introduced in the 1980s. Unlike a flake or a dairy milk, the Spira felt playful, like a chocolate experiment that had somehow made it onto shelves. Some people loved nibbling the hollow spirals slowly, others just chomped them down like any other bar. By the early 2000s, though, its popularity faded. Without the richness of a flake or the solid reliability of a dairy milk, it was easy for Cadbury to cut it from the lineup in 2005. It's remembered now as one of those quirky bars that makes people smile at the mention. But nothing captured our childhood magic like Kellogg's Pokemon cereal back in the late 90s. Pokemon fever swept across Britain, and Kellogg's joined in with their colourful Pokemon cereal. Each box was filled with sweet oat rings and marshmallows shaped like Pikachu, Squirtle, and Charmander. For kids, it wasn't just breakfast. It was a collectible moment every morning. Grandparents often bought boxes just to see the joy on their grandchildren's faces, sometimes sneaking a bowl themselves when no one was looking. The cereal felt like a prize, combining cartoons, toys, and sugar into one irresistible mix. Despite its popularity, Kellogg's never made it permanent, and by the early 2000s it was gone, leaving fans bewildered. Today, nostalgia groups still share photos of the bright boxes, remembering how even the milk turned sugary and colourful. Pokemon cereal didn't just fill bowls, it filled mornings with fun. However, nothing marked Christmas like Terry's White Chocolate Orange. Grandparents will tell you Christmas stockings weren't complete without a Terry's Chocolate Orange, and for one magical season, there was a white chocolate version. Released briefly in the early 2000s, this limited edition orb was smooth, creamy, and broke apart into snowy white segments. Families snapped them up, sharing slices after dinner or tucking them under the tree. But one day, it just vanished out of nowhere. Terry's never explained why, but fans still crave its return, saying it was sweeter, softer, and somehow even more indulgent than the classic. Though it only lasted a short time, the white chocolate orange has become legendary, remembered fondly like a fleeting miracle. But Penguin Flipper Dipper was even more memorable. The Penguin Flipper Dipper was McVitie's playful answer to the KP Choc Dip, a little pot of creamy chocolate with tiny penguin biscuits for dunking. It became a staple of children's lunchboxes in the 90s, the sort of treat grandparents would sneak into shopping baskets to earn a smile. The ritual of dipping biscuit after biscuit into the chocolate made it more than a snack. It was an activity, a moment of fun tucked into the school day. The biscuits were cheeky little characters, and the chocolate was smooth enough to keep kids hooked. But by the mid-2000s, Flipper Dipper had vanished, leaving only memories of sticky fingers and empty pots. Today, fans still reminisce about them as one of the best lunchbox fillers ever made. Another classic snack we all can't forget is Burton's Potato Puffs. Your grandparents might remember Burton's potato puffs as the little crisps that packed a big punch. Sold in ready salted, cheese and onion, and salt and vinegar, they were cheap, cheerful, and often found in corner shops. They came in small, simple bags but delivered a flavour that made them feel bigger than they were. For kids in the 80s and 90s, they were the go-to snack after school, eaten on the walk home with friends. By 2009, though, they suddenly vanished, leaving fans confused and heartbroken. To this day, people still search online for any trace of them, hoping they'll make a comeback. Grandparents recall buying them in bulk because they disappeared so fast at home, and many still say no crisp has matched their crunchy charm. Finally, Nichols Panda Pops shocked people even more when they vanished. Few drinks are remembered with as much nostalgia as Panda Pops. For more than 35 years, those small plastic bottles filled with brightly coloured fizzy pop were a weekend treat across Britain. They came in wild flavours like cherryade, bubblegum, lemonade, even blue raspberry. And for kids, just spotting them in the shop fridge was exciting. They weren't fancy or expensive, just cheerful bottles of sugary fizz that felt made for children. But by 2011, Panda Pops were gone. Health concerns and criticism over artificial colours and E-numbers finally pushed the brand out of production. Families were disappointed because Panda Pops had been tied to simple joys like picnics, birthday parties, and long summer afternoons. Their disappearance marked the end of a fizzy tradition that shaped childhoods for decades. Which of these discontinued British snacks do you miss the most? Let us know in the comments below. If you learnt something new today, make sure to give the channel a subscribe. See you in the next one.